spent months covering the 2020 election, deliberately avoiding the DC Beltway. But with the city on a militarized lockdown for Joe Biden's inauguration, it felt impossible to stay away.
But democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
2 weeks before leaving office, Donald Trump incited an insurrection on the US Capitol.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
These images will come to define his presidency. This city should be celebrating a new president, but instead, Washington is reeling from a domestic terror attack.
I understood the severity of what we were dealing with, and I placed a call to my children's father, made a request to him to make sure that he would continue to tell my children that I loved them if I didn't make it out that day.
I've condemned the attack on the Capitol, but to exaggerate it is equally a mistake.
Inaugurations are supposed to be about the peaceful transfer of power in front of the American public. And it seems pretty clear that what we're seeing is something completely different, and it's a city on lockdown.
Are we able to walk through?
You have to walk around.
Can we go through the green behind the White House? The ellipse?
No, you have to get over there.
But DC's militarized zone is only in the city centre, and this is a community of 700,000 residents. On Martin Luther King Day, 48 hours before inauguration, I headed to the Anacostia neighbourhood. The annual Peace Parade has been cancelled due to the pandemic, but some residents had still turned out for a community cleanup event.
How did you guys feel, and how did this community feel about what happened in the Capitol last week?
Well, let me say that for many of us on this side of the Anacostia River, you know, that's their capital, not ours. You know, that's a running sentiment. But the atrocity that took place there kind of changed how people were upset about that. And then there was also the undertone that had that been black people, that would have went a whole nother way.
Do you feel safe in the city now? Have you been back since that insurrection happened?
Technically, we're right now.
Okay, I mean, downtown, like in the sort of city centre where where you work.
No.
You don't feel safe there?
I have no reason to go there, so I'm choosing not to.
That's sad, right?
I don't. I mean, it's different. I'll say that. It's definitely different.
This is our home. It's a little different for us. These people destroyed, and then they're going back to their homes. How would they feel if someone came and destroyed where they live? It takes on a different meaning. So,
terrorism.
At the highest. Terrorism at the highest.
It's not just the city's lifelong residents reeling from this attack. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has been a frequent target of racist attacks by the former president. She was evacuated from her office during the insurrection. Security in the city meant we couldn't meet in person, so I spoke to her over Zoom.
Eventually the call came and I had to get specially evacuated by Capitol Police and was taken to a safe space with congressional leadership. It is my understanding that they believed that my life was at risk. And I placed a call to my children's father because I didn't know if I would make it out that day, and just made a request to him to make sure that he would continue to tell my children that I loved them if I didn't make it out that day.
Are you still in shock? Just talking to you now, maybe it's an exhausting few days in Washington, but I just detect something that suggests that you're still in shock.
I don't know if I would use the word shock. I would say it all feels exhausting, to have allowed a president to make a mockery of our laws, our Constitution, and to still deal with people who don't have an ability to understand the gravity of what we are dealing with is pretty exhausting.
I wanted to speak to someone who could account for the administration's failures to combat domestic terrorism. John Bolton served as Donald Trump's national security advisor for over a year. He was ousted in 2019 and has since become an outspoken critic of Trump.
The Trump administration over the past 4 years has continually downplayed the threat of domestic terrorism. Did you ever have conversations with him when you were his national security advisor about the threat very specifically of white nationalism, domestic terrorism from his own supporters?
Sure. Well, we covered the ground in a number of National Security Council meetings, and it was something that the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and the other law enforcement agencies were monitoring constantly.
Because there have been, obviously, former members of the Department of Homeland Security who have come on the record now to say that you downplayed that threat, that particularly around the time you were publishing the National Strategy for Counterterrorism in October 2018, there were obviously only 2 very small references to domestic terrorism in that document. What do you make of that?
Your question is fundamentally wrong. I didn't write it and promulgate it. You have quoted some subordinates.
So he's lying?
Who runs the government? The Munchkins or the cabinet secretaries?
I guess what I'm alluding to broadly is a perception and an understanding across vast swathes of the country that the Trump administration significantly downplayed the threat of domestic terrorism.
Well, you're flatly wrong on that. You're flatly wrong, and I think overstating the threat. I've condemned the attack on the Capitol, but to exaggerate it and to make it into something more than it is equally a mistake.
So you still believe that America is more prone to a threat from international terrorism than it is from insider terrorism?
I think anybody who went through 9/11 would believe that.
Officials had been warning for weeks that members of the public should stay away from Biden's inauguration. But on the morning he took the oath of office, I went out to the only public viewing area a mile from the Capitol, where a small crowd of people from all over the country had gathered.
Probably won't see much once you get in there, so.
What about the parade?
The parade won't be going by here.
There was nothing to see, but just being here still meant something.
What do you make of the restrictions in place here? They're letting 25 people in to go and see this peaceful transfer of power.
Lies, greed, and hate created the environment that makes the security necessary.
Yeah.
It's horribly unfair.
Well, yeah, it is frustrating, but at the same time, I understand the importance of the security. And so, I mean, all you can do is be here and support. So that's why I'm here.
I booked this flight months ago. I was going to cancel it. And I don't know, I just thought it was important to come. It's like, we can't come and celebrate. Like, that's letting the other side win.
Where did you guys come from today?
Texas.
You came from Texas?
Yes.
Why did you guys decide to make the journey?
Just to celebrate the fact that the first lady, first female vice president, yes, and African American, Asian American.
Privilege and high honor to be the first person to officially introduce the 46th President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden Jr.
This is America's day. This is democracy's day. A day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. Sustained by faith, driven by conviction, and devoted to one another and the country we love with all our hearts. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, America.
The streets may be deserted and parts of the country locked down, but this is still the beginning of a new political era, one that will have to overcome the many traumas of the past 4 years.